Hello, my name is Victor Gomez, and I would like to talk about my topic today is John Franklin Norris. Norris was a pastor of the First Baptist Church of Fort Worth. He was a legendary leader in his day, and the church became the largest church in America. At the dedication of the First Baptist new auditorium 10 years into his pastorate in 1919, the Fort Worth recorded total attendance for that day was 12,000, with at least 2,000 turned away, and more than 200 converts were added to the church. John Franklin Norris was a fundamentalist Baptist preacher. Was born in Dadeville, Alabama on September 18, 1877, the son of Warner and Mary Davis Norris. He and his family moved to Hubbard Hill County, Texas in 1881. After graduating, he attended Baylor University from 1898 to 1903. From 1902 to 1905, he attended Southern Baptist Theological Seminary in Louisville, Kentucky, where he earned a Master of Theology degree. In 1905, Norris returned to Texas as the pastor of the McKinney Avenue Baptist Church in Dallas. He resigned in 1907 to become editor of the Baptist Standard. Between 1907 and 1909, he is credited with ending the Texas Baptist newspaper war, with influencing the transfer of Southern Western Baptist Theological Seminary from Waco to Fort Worth, and with helping to abolish racetrack gambling. Norris sold his interest in the Standard and accepted a pastorate of the First Baptist Church of Fort Worth that same year. His tenure as pastor extended until his death in 1952, and he was a preacher for more than 44 years. Norris developed the reputation of a sensationalist and controversialist. He was involved in numerous social and civic reform activities, including prohibition and gambling reform. He led his Fort Worth church to establish a ministry and servicemen stationed at Camp Bowie during World War I. He began the first regular radio ministry in the United States in the 1920s and openly supported the Ku Klux Klan. He preached to the crowds that numbered up to 10,000 and was pastor in Detroit Temple Baptist Church and in Fort Worth, simultaneously flying back and forth with at the time when air travel was in its infancy. When his church was destroyed by fire, Norris was charged with arson. After a prorated trial, he was acquitted, but by 1920, he had rebuilt his facilities to include a 5,000-seat auditorium, gymnasium, and swimming pool. The revolving electrical sign and a spotlight mounted on the roof of the church became trademarks of his style. In the 1920s, the apex of Norris's, 1920s marked the apex of Norris's career. During the decade, he became the leader of the fundamentalist movement in Texas by attacking the alleged teaching of evolution at Baylor University. See, as a result of the controversial methods in criticizing Baylor denominational leaders and Texas Baptist policy, Norris and the First Baptist Church were denied seats at the annual meeting of the Baptist General Convention of Texas in 1922 and 1923. But then in 1926, during the height of the controversy involving Norris, Major H.C. Meekum and the anti-Catholicism, the Fort Worth pastor was shot and killed D.E. Chips, one of Meekum's friends. Norris was indicted for murder on July 29 and acquitted on the grounds of self-defense. Norris actively campaigned against the election of Al Smith to the presidency. His anti-Catholic views voiced from the pulpit, his radio station, and weekly newspaper led the Republican Party to honor him for his role in defeating Smith. And then Norris suffered the loss of his church facilities by fire for the second time in his tenure at the First Baptist Church at Fort Worth. Rebuilding the church during his height of the Great Depression was one of the greatest challenges of his career. When the new facilities were occupied, they bore little resemblance to Gander edifice of the 1920s, and later part of the 1930s, Norris organized the World Missionary Baptist Fellowship, a group of independent pre-millennial Baptist churches to combat socialist, liberal, modern tendencies with the Southern Baptist Convention. He began urging the United States to support and assist the European allies, and after the war, when John Birch graduated a seminar in Fort Worth, was killed by Chinese communists, Norris launched a renewed attack on communist influences with the United States. His preliminarist views led him to urge President Harry Truman to recognize and support the new state of Israel. Dissensions among his leadership led to a major division in his organization in 1950. The split resulted in the formation of a revival group led by the former assistant Buchan Vick, based in Springfield, Missouri. Norris and his group continued to operate from Fort Worth until his death on August 20, 1952, of a heart seizure while attending a youth camp at Jacksonville, Florida. His death marked the end of an era of religious controversy in Texas. Thank you, and have a great Christmas day.